So very similar to Bartolomeo's very chill, relaxed mood in this week's episode, I'm going to be adapting the same model with this week's review, and I'm just going to be chilling in my Domo attire. Got the Attack on Titan right here, baby. This week's episode, I will say that compared to the manga with the anime, the one thing that this episode I felt as though brought to the table was that the fights, you actually get to see them and they're actually going on. So while some of the stuff felt a little bit uninteresting or whatever, at the very least you can sit back and it's like looking at a boxing match, for example, or something. You get to see people fighting. It's like, why the fuck not, right? But as far as the content with this week's episode, for the most part, you got a little bit of, I guess, somewhat of the characterization of Bartolomeo. Well, for what we get to see thus far and how he pretty much don't give a fuck. Like, you hate him, you could hate him. He don't care. And I like that about the character. I feel as though right now, with this character, he's kind of coming off as, yeah, I'm a newcomer, but I don't give a fuck. You don't gotta like me. And I respect that. I really like that from the character. At the same point, you also have Bellamy, which for a while now, it's been so long since I've seen him that I completely forgot his power. I guess it was the spring fruit, and he's pretty much like just springing all around. And with this week's episode, it was just kind of more so showing along lines of what he was trying to do as far as now that he's back, and he's pretty much just trying to get Doflamingo's respect, and he's trying to get accepted once again from him. Apparently, he brought a big chunk of gold from Skypiea and gave it to him as like, you know, please forgive me, please let me ride that wave. So you get a little bit more of Bellamy with this week's episode and just what he's about as far as like his return to, you know, Doflamingo's ship or whatever, Doflamingo's crew, and what he's trying to do. But aside from that, this week's episode, it mainly was just like showing the setup for the fights and just like the fights going on and whatnot, what's going on, and I guess how people are playing dirty in the tournament. But it really was just a fighting episode and just really like things, you know, I guess more action oriented, and it wasn't really all that story driven for the most part. Like, the best part of the episode, hands down, by far, 100%, is the ending of the episode where this guy Don Chinjao pretty much calls it. He's like, yo, I know that you're Monkey D. Luffy. I know about your grandfather Garp, and he kind of just gave him a little bit of this info that, oh, I know of him, and we had this big thing, you know, go down in the past, and I almost lost my life to him. And it makes you wonder, okay, he said he swears that he's going to have revenge into even the grandchildren's era. What is he going to do? Is he going to attack him right then and there? It definitely makes you a little bit more hyped for that part. And I feel as though out of everything in this episode, like, we got, you know, this Dogma guy who's playing dirty. We got a little bit of Bartolomeo, this character that he's pretty beast, which that was probably like the second best part of the episode, is getting the characterization of him, because for the most part we know Bellamy, and now we just see even more, it's more evident of who the character is, so it wasn't really necessary to get any characterization of him, especially for the most part when he's just boinging around and springing around during the battle. But I feel as though between Bartolomeo's, you know, characterization of just him not giving a fuck and the ending of the episode, those are the two things about the episode that made it important and made it a little bit more impactful, because other than that, it was just mainly a bunch of fodder, gladiators fighting, and just like character introductions to some people that are going to be in the tournament. Don Chinjao bit, it really just kind of goes a little bit more into the internal story, because he mentions the grandfather, and it makes you think, okay, what is the actual connections? He said he has this battle. Was it that they were arch rivals? It makes you, you know, question certain aspects of that, and just how far is he willing to take this grudge. So this episode overall, it felt a bit on the mediocre side. It was kind of average for the most part. It had some cool fights, but aside from the ending and a little bit of characterization, that's really all it brought to the table, because other than that, it was just plain fighting. And while that's enjoyable and fun to see, it really doesn't add anything to the story, or it just isn't like something that's impactful or anything. So I'm gonna give this episode 5 out of 10. I felt as though it was average. Let me know what you guys think. First of all, Bartolomeo, do you think that this dude is too raw? Like, right now I'm curious, like, it kind of like introduces it and kind of sets it up, like just how strong, to what extent is his power. If he could just lay there in the middle of a fight and say, I don't give a fuck, and like just telling the crowd piss off or whatever, how strong is this dude? And also this whole thing, like, how far would this Don Chinjao guy go, because he clearly has some gripe with Garp. So just really some interesting stuff there. But again, aside from that, it was just like fights and kind of slow pace as usual with One Piece. But again, just your overall thoughts of the episode. What did you think of everything that was going down? Did you like the way the anime handled it? Like I said, I feel as though the best thing that the anime can do that the manga can't do is, because these bits in the manga weren't all that, as well as like introductions and setting things up or whatever. It wasn't you know, any amazing stuff like that. But at least with the anime, you get to see it in motion, and that always is a plus. That's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up if you can't wait to see more of this Bartolomeo creep, and also this Don Chinjao guy. What is his, you know, past with Garp, and just how much hatred he holds, and, you know, just a lot of this setup. I feel as though the ending just really gave great setup, and I'm really excited about that. I'm for that world, and as always, people, have an awesome day. Domo!